Okay, hi guys. Happy Tuesday. It is April 21st. I'm putting your daily video and daily reference kind of in one here. We're just going to do some notes on standard form. So I'm just going to like lump everything together. We are going to move on from the solving levels 1 and 2. So if you feel like you're still stuck on the solving problems, please make sure you're communicating with me. Set up a video conference time, come to office hours, do something. They will come back. We are going to have to do some kind of summative or something here in the next couple of weeks. So just make sure you're paying attention. Don't let yourself get behind and get frustrated. I'm still here to help you, so just communicate with me. We do have a very important announcement for today. Believe it or not, I have to enter your fourth quarter, mid-quarter grades this week. Basically, because everything is a little bit crazy and different, your teachers get to decide how to assign these grades. So we get to use our discretion and it's going to be a little bit different here. So I'm going to tell you how it's going to work for me. This will not be the same as your English class, your science class. So everybody is kind of on a different page here. And all of the teachers just get to decide what's best for their class. So I'm going to tell you how it's working for me, but it might be different than your other classes. So please communicate with your other teachers as well if you're worried about your grades. So for me, no one has a set letter for the fourth quarter yet. Your grades do matter, your grades do count. We are still giving you a regular letter grade at the end of the semester. However, I am not really comfortable giving out a set letter right now just because everything is a little bit new and fresh. I feel like we haven't been doing this that long. I have lots of people that started really late or, have had other issues, are communicating with me, have whatever. Everybody's all over the place. So I'm going to just use this as a check-in. Obviously, these letters are not permanent, but I just want you to know if you're on the right track or not, okay? So you're going to see one of three letters coming home. You're going to see either an F, a D, or an S, okay? An F just means you're straight up failing. This is for people that were like failing in the third quarter, that haven't done anything all semester. This is like, we're in trouble here. If you're seeing an F coming home here, this is not a good sign and you really need to communicate with me ASAP, okay? That's not very many people, but there are a few. So just pay attention to that. The F coming home is a really, really bad sign, okay? If you see the letter D, it just means you're in danger of failing. So for this quarter, you haven't been keeping up with assignments, I haven't heard from you, you're not communicating with me, you haven't done what you're supposed to do, and then just know that if we continue on that path of not doing anything, it's going to put us in trouble at the end of this semester because, keep in mind, I have to have something to assign a grade based upon. So this is like if you've done only a handful of the assignments, you're not responding to emails, all that stuff. What you want to see coming home is an S. So S is for satisfactory. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're on the right track. The S is going to eventually translate into like an A, B, or C. This just means you're turning in all of or most of your assignments. And if you continue on that, you're going to eventually get a passing grade. So the S is what you want to see. If you see the letter D, you better pick it up a little bit and get some of your online stuff figured out. And if you're seeing an F come home, you better email me immediately and communicate with me every single day because we got to make some major changes, okay? Most of you are going to fall into this S category, and then at the end of the semester, you'll be divided out into an actual like A, B, and C, so that you get an actual letter grade at the end. So if you have questions about this, please let me know, but just know you're going to see one of these three letters, and then if you have questions or concerns about that, just send me an email. So for today, we're going to go over standard form and transformations. We're going to talk about identifying A, C, and D, and then we're going to do a super quick overview of A, C, and D's jobs. Okay, so I would definitely be taking notes here. Pause the video, throughout if you need to, whatever's going to work for you. But I would definitely be writing some of this stuff down. Okay. So we talked about standard form. This was in our very first Unit 4 slideshow. This is how all of our radical functions are going to be set up. So you're always going to have an a being multiplied on the outside. Okay, so keep in mind there's no plus or minus here. This is a times the square root of x plus c plus d. Okay, so a is being multiplied on the outside. C is going to be added or subtracted on the inside. So you might see x minus. If your c value is negative, you're going to have a negative sign here. But it's always being added or subtracted on the inside of the radical, so it's in the radicand. And then your d value is always going to be added or subtracted on the outside. So a multiplies in the front or on the outside, c added or subtracted on the inside, d added or subtracted on the outside. Someone always asks me this. There is a b value. The b value actually lives right here in front of the x. If you're interested in the b value, you got to take pre-calc or trig. We just don't cover it in this class, but it does exist. So in this section, your first section was solving, so we're on to section 2 now. We're going to talk about transformations and graphing. So remember from our first set of notes, a transformation is a shift or change from a parent function, okay? Remember the parent function here in red, this is just the simplest, most basic, easiest radical function in the entire world. And then a transformation is just a change from this base. This is like our home base here, right? So transformations come from the addition of a, c, and d. So if you notice, right, the parent function still exists in this right here. We just can add on an a value, add on a c value, add on a d value. So anytime we include a, c, and d, it's just a shift from this into something new. So a, c, and d just change this parent function. So when we add on a, c, and d, we just transform the parent function into something else. So a, c, and d, when we add those, each of them has a job. So each of them transforms the graph in some specific way. So a does one thing, it transforms the graph in a particular way. C transforms it in a different way. D transforms it in a third way. So each element, A, C, and D, has a job, and each of those transforms the graph or changes the graph in a particular manner. So here's what this might look like. Okay. We have in red over here our parent function, right? F of x equals the square root of x. Super basic, super easy. Okay, it starts here at 0, 0, and it just slides up nice and easily over here. The transformation then, if you look at this one down here, we've added in this negative sign in the a spot. We've added in a 3, we've added in a 1, and that has now changed this function. If you notice, the black function here looks different than our red parent function, right? It's upside down, it moved to the left, it moved up, right? And this all comes from the A, the C, and the D. So each of these elements, the negative sign, the 3, and the 1, did something to this parent to turn it into this over here. So a transformation is just those changes or those shifts, and they come from A, C, and D. Okay? So transformation is a shift or change from the parent, and they come from A, C, and D. So it's going to be really important that you are able to identify A, C, and D. So we're going to practice that really quickly here. Maybe do one with me and then pause the video and try to do the rest of them by yourself. But this is just going to be important that you can look at a function and say, okay, yeah, A equals this, C equals this, and D equals this. Okay. So for number 1, I'm looking for A, C, and D. I know that my A value is going to be out here in the front, so A equals 3. My C value is on the inside here, so C equals negative 7, include the sign, and D equals 2. Okay. On the second one, my A value is a negative 0.5. My C value is a positive 1, and my D value is a negative 12. Okay. Numbers 3 and 4 we have to be a little bit more careful of. So I'm going to give you the answers, and then in the next slide I'm going to explain it a little bit more. In this one, if you notice, there's nothing out here in the A position. Everyone's automatic instinct is to say, okay, well, A equals 0. It does not. In fact, A equals 1 out here. So this is an invisible or an implied 1 in front because it's being multiplied. If we included a 0 out here, it would make the whole thing 0. So if there's nothing out here in the 1 or in the A space, it's automatically a 1. So for number 3, A equals 1, C equals -8, and now here's where it gets maybe a little bit confusing. Notice that we also don't have a D value. Okay? The D value is allowed to be 0 because it's being added or subtracted. We can add 0 and it doesn't change this at all. We can't multiply by 0, that's why we get the 1, but we can add 0. So for number 3, A equals 1, C equals -8, D equals 0. Okay. Let's look at number 4. Number 4, again, there's nothing out here in the A position. There's an implied 1. So A actually equals -1 here. Notice that we're not adding or subtracting anything on the inside. C, because it's being added or subtracted, is allowed to be 0. And then your D value at the end here is a -1. So, gotta pay special attention to 3 and 4, and I'll explain this a little bit better in just a second. A cannot be 0, but C and D are allowed to be 0. Okay, so A cannot be 0 because it's being multiplied. If this were a 0 out here, it would make the whole thing 0. Okay, so if there's nothing out in front being multiplied, it's an invisible 1. Okay, so A will never be 0. C and D, however, are allowed to be 0 because they're being added and subtracted. Okay, so in the C position here, if there's nothing, it's a 0. And the D position out here, if there's nothing, it's a 0. Okay, so if there's nothing being multiplied, it's an invisible 1. But if there's nothing being added or subtracted in the C or the D place, that's allowed to be a 0. So C and D can be 0, A cannot. Okay, because this is being multiplied and these are being added or subtracted. So we would not multiply by 0, but we can add or subtract 0. So the last thing we're going to talk about really quickly is just a very, very, very fast and general overview of what the jobs are. So I'm going to just super briefly tell you how each of these elements, A, C, and D, actually transforms the radical function. So I told you that they all have a job, right? They all do something to the graph. So very quickly, I'm going to tell you the jobs, and then over the next couple of days, we're going to get a little bit more in depth in what those jobs actually are and what they look like. Okay. So A has 3 potential jobs. So A can flip, A can stretch, and A can shrink. You don't really know what that looks like right now, but you will soon. Okay, for now, I just need you to know the jobs. A can flip, stretch, shrink. Okay. Each of these also has a little keyword that helps us remember. So A's keyword is alter. A is for alter. And A is the only element that can actually change the shape of our graph. Okay. The others change the position of the graph, but A actually can change the shape. So A is for alter, and A can flip, stretch, or shrink. C only has one job. C can only do one thing. It either goes to the left or the right. Okay? So C is a shift left or right. C's word is counterintuitive. So counterintuitive just means basically counter is against, and intuitive is like your intuition or like your gut feeling. So counterintuitive just means it goes against what you would expect. So this keyword, counterintuitive, helps us remember that C moves in opposites. Okay, and that again is something that I'll explain a little bit later on, but for now, I just need you to know that C only has one job. It can shift left or right. Okay, and the keyword that helps us remember is counterintuitive. intuitive. So A was flip, stretch, or shrink, and the keyword was alter. Okay. C is shift left or right, and the keyword is counterintuitive. Last one is our letter D. Okay. D also has only one job. It can go up or down. Okay. And that keyword that helps us here is deductive. Okay. Deductive just means it comes from a reasonable expectation. So where C is against what you would expect, D is exactly what you would expect. So C moves in opposites, but since D is deductive, it moves exactly how you would think it does. Okay, so A, flip, stretch, shrink is for alter. C, shift left and right is for counterintuitive. D, shift up or down is for deductive. Okay, so that's all you need to know right now, and then we'll get into what this actually means in the next couple of days here. Okay. So here's what you should know from this slideshow. Here's what's going to be on your daily assignment today. Basically, I need you to know how I'm going to grade you. What do those three letters mean? Okay. You need to know standard form. You need to know the parent function. You need to know what a transformation is and where it comes from. Okay, so a shift or change from the parent comes from A, C, and D. If I give you a function, you need to be able to tell me A equals this, C equals this, D equals this. You need to know what A's jobs are and what keyword. You need to know C and D's jobs and keywords. So flip, stretch, shrink, alter, left and right, counterintuitive, up and down, deductive. Okay, if you can answer these questions here, you are going to be totally good to go on your daily assignment. So finish up your notes and then head over to Google Classroom, and you guys are off for your daily assignment for today. And then this down here, the jobs and the keywords, is what we're going to move on to in the next couple of days. As always, please let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, you guys are off. Great job, and I'll talk to you again soon.